Welcome to the third in this series of in-between videos. Today you find me sitting at the long table in the old shoe shop, making a mess out of Alfie's Rubik's Cube. But I found myself thinking about how writing a book is a bit like solving a Rubik's Cube, with the caveat that I have written a book, I've never solved a Rubik's Cube. But I'll try and tell you a bit more about that in this video. It's the 31st of March, so a quarter of 2025 has gone by as of today. Sorry if I'm the first person to break that to you, but I felt like it might be a good moment at which to take stock of the work of the year so far. And one of the small things that I've taken a lot of pleasure in so far this year has been this video series and how warmly it's been received by people out there. And last time when I was sat in the English Park in Uppsala, I was talking about the experience of being given a question. And one of you wrote back about the questions that you'd found in my work over the years. And one of those questions that I realized quite a few people have picked up from me, or maybe from others, it's not especially original, is the question of what is the work that is yours to do? And when I sit down a quarter of the way through 2025 and narrow that question down to this particular year, the answer is really simple. My work this year is to write a book, another book, because I spent 2 years taking at work in the ruins out into the world, and it took me on all kinds of adventures, and I've learned a lot from it. And I thought that by now the interest in it would be dying down and there would be fewer invitations coming in, and actually there are more invitations coming in than ever. So I've had to turn down about 9 out of 10 of the exciting, promising, interesting invitations that have come my way so far this year, but that still leaves a few that I've said yes to. So in a moment, I will just take you through the various events online and in person that I will be doing in the months ahead, in case there's something there that you want to join me for. But firstly, thinking about writing a book, I was very struck by an essay that came my way at the end of last week. It was a Substack post. It was from somebody called Anu, and it showed up in the Meta Label newsletter. And she was writing about making heavy things. She said, whenever you're creating, you're either in light mode or in heavy mode. And light mode is fast and free and flowing, and the internet encourages us to be always in light mode. But her encouragement was to notice how it matters to make things that feel heavy, substantial, things that are made to last. Remember, again, Alan Garner's grandfather's advice: take your time, because the job will be there when you're gone, and you don't want someone saying, "What fool made that?" And it speaks to us almost from another world, from a world in which it's normal to spend your life making things that have a good chance of still being around when you're gone. But there's something true in this call to make sure that we don't get stuck in light mode. The other line that really jumped out at me from Anu's piece was, you feel like an imposter when you only make light things. And I recognize myself in that. I recognize where I was 3-4 years ago, before I wrote At Work in the Ruins. I'd done a lot of writing. I'd seen a lot of my words go out into the world. I'd been part of creating a lot of other things. It might have sounded kind of absurd to people who were aware of the things that I was doing, that I had that sense of being an imposter because I hadn't made a heavy thing. But for me, I knew and had known from when I was quite young that a heavy thing in the craft that I was, foolishly or not, headed into took the shape of a book. Maybe that's not the only kind of heavy thing that I'm around to make, but it's an important one, it's a central one. And I'd never written a whole book of my own. I don't feel like an imposter in that way anymore. And that's more than a passing mood, something that you get excited about and then it wears off. It's like a change of state from who I was and how I was until the last few years to who I am and how I am now. I'm very grateful for that. And now I'm doing it again. And there are a few differences to last time. One is that I've done it before. You know what they say, your second marathon's harder than your first, because the first time around you do not know how long it's going to be. There's a little bit of that, but mainly there's a lot of gratitude for the ways in which my circumstances have changed since I wrote At Work in the Ruins. Not least, this is the first time I have written a book with a Substack audience. And with some of you as part of that who pay monthly or yearly to support me and the work that I'm doing. And that's an extraordinary thing as a writer. At a very practical level, it means that I'm able to take my time and sort of play with the Rubik's Cube of this book that wants to be written until I've found the right way of turning it and angling it before I head on to the runway of actually writing a book with a contract and a deadline with my publisher. And so I'm really grateful for that. Another level, it's also just, it makes the work of writing less lonely to have this sense of being cheered on by you. And it's also something I'm having to figure out. Like, how do I go from the way that I've been using Substack in the last few years as I began to take At Work in the Ruins out into the world, to find a way of using it that works this year, when the work that's mine to do involves things like, at this stage, sitting here at this long table and mapping out the whole shape of the book that lies ahead of me, and then the weeks and months of turning that first into a full proposal and then into a full manuscript. And at the start of the year, I said, right, I'm going to do two things. I am going to make these videos roughly once a month. And then in between the videos, or the videos are in between, I'm going to drop a new essay every 4 or 6 weeks. And 3 months into the year, I realized that I need to question that second part of it, the public part of it. Because the videos, this works great. Writing a new essay every 4 or 6 weeks, I realized that when I write an essay, I want to go deep. I want to go into the heavy territory. And there are new essays that will come along this year. But actually, if I'm going to be in service to the book, probably what I need to do is combine the odd new essay with bringing you things that I wrote years ago that had a smaller and different audience to the Substack audience that I have today. And so that's the main change that I'm going to be making after this first third of the year, because a couple of times in recent weeks I've spent a week working on an essay that has a lot in it that's taken me into really interesting places, but that I haven't finished and sent you. And when I look honestly at that, it's because the thing that is commanding my attention is the book. So if you're a member of the home team, those of you who have paid subscriptions or are otherwise involved in being part of the close community around my work, then I'll tell you a bit more about the book that I'm working on, and I'll actually read you a little bit of it because I had a bit of a breakthrough last week and I thought I'd share that with you. Meanwhile, a word about upcoming events. Tomorrow, the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, or Holy Fool's Day, as I suggested a few years ago we ought to rename it. I am getting together joyfully with my friend Vanessa Andreotti, also known to many of you as Vanessa Machado de Oliveira, and we're doing an event together for resilience.org. That'll be at 7 p.m. Swedish time, so that's 1 p.m. on the east coast of it's noon on the east coast. 1 p.m. I don't know, look it up. It's on the Resilience website. I'll put a link to that here. This weekend, if you happen to be in Gothenburg, and if you speak Swedish, and if you have nothing planned for Saturday, well, I'm going to be giving a talk in Swedish at the Swedish Church's spring meeting that's happening in Gothenburg. Later in the month, on the 25th of April, I will be giving an online lecture for the Philosophy and Religion Forum of the University of Southern Mississippi. It's going to be a lecture called Who Believes in Climate Change? And that one will turn into an essay that will be coming to all of you at some point this year. But that event, it's on Friday the 25th of April. It's at 6 p.m. Swedish time, 6 p.m. Central European Standard Time. Summertime. You can tell the clock's changed this weekend here, so my mind is a bit boggled when it comes to time. On the 6th of May at 11 p.m. Swedish time, so I know that that is 5 p.m. on the east coast of the US, I am going to be giving an online keynote for an event that's being organised by Hiram College, and there's more details of that to come, but I believe that that is something that it will be possible for anyone who wants to join. I'll update this post with links once I get more information about that, but you can put the date and the time in your diary should you wish. And finally, in November, the 7th to the 9th of November, I'm going to be traveling to the Netherlands for an event that is called the Rotterdam Change Days. Historically, it's been the Berlin Change Days, but they're taking it to different cities now each year. And this was one invitation that came in that I felt I had to say yes to, because they are planning their whole gathering this year around At Work in the Ruins. And so they've invited me to give a keynote and to be part of the event, which is for people involved in change work of many kinds. Again, I will put the link to that in the show notes to this video. So that's those are the events that I've said yes to in the coming months. Now, before we draw up the paywall and I dive into telling you a bit more about this book that I'm working on, a word about that wall, because I think of it, I picture it as being like the wall of a tent, and there's a doorway, and by the doorway there's a table, and on the table there's a bowl, and many of the people who pass through that doorway into the tent put a coin in the bowl as they go, and others exchange a word or two with the host, and either way, everyone who wants to step across that threshold into the tent is welcome. No one's ever been turned away. I did think for a while last year about simply turning this into a donation system and giving away all of the work that I'm doing on Substack. The reason I didn't do that is not because I want to kind of keep some scarcity and, you know, hold on to it and create incentives for you to take out a paid subscription. it's because I really value that sense of there being this kind of smaller, more tightly gathered community of people who have chosen in one way or another to step through that doorway and be part of what I realized this morning that the name for it should be the home team. The home team is made up of all of you who are supporting my work financially or through your encouragement, but in one way or another have taken that step closer than just having a subscription to the ordinary free Substack. And if that's you, then drop me a note or take out a paid subscription. And either way, you'll be welcome to step across the threshold, which includes things like the Booba Club that we had a few weeks ago. Got some more invitations for live online gatherings like that coming up in the weeks and months ahead. And meanwhile, it includes the rest of this video where I try and explain why writing a book is possibly like solving a Rubik's Cube.